And welcome back from the interactive forums. I hope you had a wonderful time and good discussions, and real deep discussions with the people you were meeting at the network cafe as well. I hope you're having a great day. Now we have the time to have more best practices to learn and to hear what they are doing. And we have people here who are actually working with Cradle to Cradle in different fields, and so it's not one topic that we will hear from. So we will have 3 slots with 20 minutes each slot. So we will start with a company doing glass. Then we will go over to Wouter, who is talking about plastics and packaging, and at the end we will hear something from the marketing perspective, because there we need to work on as well. So we are really happy to have all 3 of you here, and we will start with Monsieur Lefebvre. Thank you that you're here for instead of Mr. Lumen, because he is sick, he was not able to come. But thank you for making it to being here instead. And we will hear about AGC and what they are doing on Cradle to Cradle. They are also working with us in the Cradle to Cradle lab, and they are going on a Cradle to Cradle journey for some time now with the whole company. So thank you very much for being here, and the stage is yours.
Thank you a lot, Nora. So, good afternoon to everybody. I will try to explain you our journey, our long journey in the glass industry till the Cradle to Cradle certification. So, I'm not Givan Marquez, have been explained, is ill, and I replace it. So the slide have been done by him, but I will try to explain you as well as I can what we do for Cradle to Cradle inside AGC. I'm the product manager of Laminated Glass for the whole group at the European level. So, in fact, AGC, it's a very, very huge company producing glass at European level. So it will explain how it's so difficult to get the Cradle to Cradle for a so big company. So we have 140 plants, in 12 countries, 14,000 employees, and a sales of 2 billion in Europe only for glass in the building. We produce flat glass for all applications you can dream. To give you an idea, between 1/5 and 1/4 of the glass in Europe is coming from us. Okay, so it's a very big volume. So we have glass for thermal insulation, for solar, for lighting, for appliance, automotive, a very big list of products. So of course, the Cradle to Cradle, it's not the only thing we do to have a green product. In fact, we have 4 big pillars, different approach at different level, at plant, at process level, at quality level, at operation, and so on. But today we are here to speak about eco-label, and it's particularly important for us as it's multi-level. It can be comparable versus other products. It can be also multi-attribute. What is also important is a third-party assessment. So somewhere, as we do already many things, it's a nice certification to show and to help us to speak about our product to the community. So we are proud, and I'm very proud to say that we have today 8 family of products already certified at silver level or at bronze level. Each family represents tens of different products. For example, decorative glass, we have the painted, the mirror, the acid etch, The float glass, it means the raw glass. It's a different type of color of glass and so on. So it's a very large range of products that we have certified today. It represents a very big job. We have many people working on this topic and a special dedicated team to do it. It started already 10 years ago. So we started really in the beginning, in 2010. At this moment, for sure, it was not greenwashing or thing like this. We do it in a voluntary way to make the difference between our product and product from competition. Also to show what we do about environmental aspect and to be able to speak about on a third-party certified basis. So as you can see, every, let's say, year or 2 years, we certify new range of product. And if you add all the renewal every 2 years, it means that almost every year we have an action about cradle to cradle. And the team in charge of this is doing a big job. Not only this team, but also the team from each plan, from the product management and so on. So now I will show you some challenge because, okay, the glass, it looks like a very incredible green product. It's a sustainable product. It's very nice. But we are faced to very big challenge to get the cradle-to-cradle certification. And I will show you a few challenges we are faced or we have been faced till now. So first of all, the float glass. Today, it's overall certification bronze level. So we call the float glass, it means the basic raw material, let's say, just the sheet of simple glass. The problem is that it's very energy intensive. So very intensive into energy. We have to melt all the raw material. The raw material are really natural, are very good for health. It's coming from the nature. So as you can see, we are platinum from this point of view for the material health. So we are very proud of this. We have a very nice product. But from the energy, it's very, very difficult to get the renewable energy and carbon management medallion at the same level. You see, we are only bronze. We have 18 furnaces to melt all this raw material. We are melting around 9,000 tons of raw materials every day. And to melt this, in the past, we use heavy fuels. Not so good, a lot of CO2. We change completely and we pass now all our furnace to natural gas, less CO2, more clean. We also treat all our fumes from the chimney. Anyway, we continue to consume a lot of energy. To give you an idea, all the AGC group in Europe, we consume the same energy than a small country like Luxembourg or Estonia. In 1 year. So you have the ideas. So to get the cradle to cradle, we have to really to take care to save the energy everywhere it's possible. And finally, we get the bronze level. So overall certification is only bronze for a so nice product. And just a message for the Cradle to Cradle Institute. For us, it's a pity that the worst level define the complete level. It's a pity because we not have the opportunity to show how a product is good, because there are many other products that are bronze, but they are bronze at each parameter. Here you see we have a very big difference because we are platinum for material health, but you see silver, gold, and so on. Another challenge we have been faced, it's the certification of the insulating glass unit. So at this moment, it's no more just sheet of glass, simple sheet of glass, but it's really a complex product because there is at least 2 sheets of glass or 3 sheets of glass, can be different type of glass, can be also laminate, can be with coating and so on. But also there is spacer, there is sealant, there is some glue, there is many other material. Also, this product is produced in more than 40 different sites, so it means a lot of paperwork to audit 40 different sites all across Europe to gather all the data about water, energy, and so on, and also to compile data from all our subcontractors and all our suppliers, because all our suppliers, they are delivering to us some sealant, some glue, and so on. And okay, that's the tradition in the past. Sometimes they are not very happy to say what is inside really in their glue, in their material. So it's a really difficult thing for us to collect all this data under the confidentiality aspect. Finally, by choosing rightly the supplier, the material, and so on, we get the bronze level for this very complex product. Another challenge, it's about the mirror. So the mirror, it's everybody know what is it, but perhaps you don't know that at the previous century, the mirror was fabricated using a lot of ammonia, copper, formaldehyde, and so on. So already 20 years ago, we decided to completely change the recipe. Our researchers make a great job to develop a new mirror without any copper, without any formaldehyde, and decreasing the lead also inside. So we launch it and we sell it and we call it MNGE. So it was a mirror, new generation, ecological. It's the 19 marketing type, huh? Okay? At this moment, it was the third generation. And okay, in 2012, we do the job to get the cradle to cradle for this product. And as you see, we get the bronze level. But we want to improve and to do better. And our research work, and we launched 2 years ago, the Mirror 4 Green, so the fourth generation, and we improved the paint and all the material content. We improve also the energy renewable by compensate CO2, by using solar cell on top of our plant, and we get the silver. So I'm very proud to say that we are the first silver level mirror, and for mirror it's logic to have silver, I think. And at the end, and I'm very proud about this one because it's my range of product personally. I manage this range of product. It's the laminated glass. So it's at least 2 sheets of glass with a PVB interlayer to provide more safety, more acoustic properties. So first we certified it in 2014, and we get the bronze level, especially due to material health aspect. Again, the worst is the final result, despite the fact that we are gold or silver for other aspects. It was due to presence of CMR in the PVB, so our supplier have some receipt, in fact unknown from us. We know there are CMR, but we don't know what exactly the quantities and so on. It's managed by the assessor. But I want personally to have better product. So we decide to launch a new Stratobel B Green, which is more, let's say, green with the cradle-to-cradle silver. So to do this, we make a real sort of our supplier, and we say to our supplier, okay, guys, no, you have to be more green. We ask them to be cradle-to-cradle themselves. It's not sure we will get it. But anyway, we want to improve. And this file, it's today on the desk of the Cradle-to-Cradle Institute. I'm waiting every day the signature, perhaps Friday, perhaps Monday. I was hoping that I can announce today, but I not received yet the certificate. It's okay for the assessor. So perhaps next week we will launch it. And that's it. Just to say that we continue to improve. It's a long journey. We do a lot of work. And I can add that today We learned last month that our main competitor start to make cradle to cradle for his product. It's a big competitor, as big as us. He's bronze, only bronze, no more than us. But okay, he start to do the job. And what is very nice, it means that as he's so big as us, almost 50% of the glass in Europe market, now it's at least bronze level for all Europe. So that's very nice.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. I mean, maybe you just mentioned, or you were talking about the certification and about you're really deep in this certification and the certification process. Maybe in a short sentence, you can tell us what makes a glass cradle to cradle, or what is it? Because actually when we look at this, most of us would say, okay, that looks like a cradle to cradle material. And what was that, what you, like at the beginning, were thinking of, okay, this is something we really need to change to get there?
Okay, so I can respond only for flat glass, because we are producing all the glass you can dream, except bottle, glass, and so on. But basically it's the same. So, yes, in 2 or 3 words, it's a natural product coming from the earth. It's just melted. We add few additive, but it's also natural additive, and it can be fully recycled. At the opposite, we need between 5 and 30% of recycled product in our material to be energy renewal and to decrease the energy. So it's a perfect recycling product. It's a natural product. And finally, and I not mention, it brings a lot to all the community. Okay, here there is few windows, but I was impressed during the Congress that we spend all our time in a closed room. With windows, with glass, you can receive sun, free energy, free light during all the time. So you see, from one side we use energy, but at the other side we bring to all the community many good value.
Yes, but thank you. At the same time, when we look at glass, or you have the flat glass, like you said, it's quite difficult to actually take this glass and produce a new flat glass out of that. Or that's at least what the industry is telling us. They say, okay, going really in a cycle and not downcycling the glass is the difficulty. How have you worked with this problem?
Yes. First of all, we do better because the glass, it's in fact a long-term use. When you put flat glass in your windows, in your home or in a building, you keep it 20 years, 40 years, 15 years, till somebody not break it with a football ball or something like this. You have not to replace. So that's not good for us, but that's the truth. So it's a long-term product first. When we recycle, it's not really a problem. It has to be very well organized. So today we recycle all the glass inside our plant when we produce. When you ask a windows from a dimension, each the part we recut and so on to prepare it, we recycle already in the plant. After, when it's installed, when your glazer change a glass, he bring it back, so it go to a recycling company that separate, if it's laminated, separate the laminated, separate the mirror. So the most difficult thing is just to sort and to separate, and after you can go back to the furnace. So it's not an impossible job, and it's done because, as I mentioned, we need to have recycled material in the furnace.
Yes, and probably also because of the quality, because we still have lead, for example, in our glasses, and people bring that into the recycling process, and then we have the problems that we cannot actually recycle it in the same quality, but only downcycling it. Is there any other question from the audience? We have time for one more question. Okay, I'm just, yeah, you, please.
Oh, there.
Raphael Fasco, Retech Circular. How is the market responding to the label? I mean, there is also the LED points that you get. Like, how is the development on the market reaction to the label?
Yes, thanks for your question, because it's very important. I have to say that we did it more due to our social responsibility at the beginning. We did it also to make difference between our glass and other glass, because when you have a look on the glass, it looks like the same than the one from the competition, let's say. Honestly, today, I will not say that it helps us to sell more or to sell higher price, because nobody wants to pay more to have a certified product. But if they have to choose, yes, they take our product. So I have no real figure to say, okay, I know very well what it costs to me, how many people have to work on this. I know the cost. It's not obvious to know exactly what is the payback. But it has payback in terms of image of the company, for sure. The market, it's important. Also for architects, there are more and more sustainable building. People want to be more sustainable. So it's a common platform to work and to bring some response. Unfortunately, when we have to pay and when the owner have to pay at the moment, he don't want to pay more for the certified. But it come slowly. For example, I have a customer in Netherlands making a partition inside building. He is certified cradle to cradle for all the frame, the pane, and so on. And he buy all his glass from us only because we are cradle to cradle. So it comes. Also in Netherlands, Venlo is a city where people receive some financial help if they use cradle-to-cradle products. So it's a local mandatory certification. So at this moment, it can help directly. But it's still very limited. But I think it's important, as our competitors do it. I suppose they think it's important.
Thank you. I think the market has to grow. That's what
Exactly.
we're talking about in the other panel right now, and with the municipalities that they can really do a lot with public procurement, for example, and then that would work as well. Thank you very much, Monsieur Lefebvre, for being here. And yeah, let's have the next impulse. Thank you.
Also for
Yeah, the next guy on this stage is Wouter Moykot. He is working with a lot of different companies already. Actually, being an entrepreneur working in this field, and we are really happy to have you here. Please come to the stage.
Thank you.
So from glass, we switched to plastics. This is actually an orange bottle, bio-based and recyclable, already made for the Dutch national football team when it will win the European title later this summer. That's I really believe it can happen again after many years. So if we just look at the scope of the plastic problem, so since the 50s and 60s, we've made 5-6 billion tons of plastics, and if you would have to imagine about a percentage of that which we've had recycled up until now, what do you think it would be? How much of that volume has been recycled? Any 6%? 8? Yeah, 10. I think I mentioned it yesterday as well. It's 10%. So it's an incredibly low amount which we've actually recycled, and a lot of that has actually also been downcycled. So, and not to speak about what has been upcycled. So what happened to the rest? What happened to the other 90%? It's mostly landfilled. It's incinerated. It's burned. It's ending up in our rivers and oceans. It's ending up in informal recycling circuits. And if we zoom in from all the plastics that we make into the household plastics, which is probably the most worrisome, the hardest part of the plastic volume, and also the one which is very hard to recycle. That you start to be really almost depressed if you look at the household plastics that we make and how much of that we can actually recycle. It's very limited. It's rising. Some of the statistics that we see in Germany and the Netherlands of 40-50%, that gives some hope, but it's also misleading, because at the end of the day, it won't be more than 20% of the household plastics which we're actually able to recycle, and some of that has also been downcycled. So what causes this, and how can we really improve this? It's one of the reasons is obviously that we use so many different types of plastics and so many different types of additives and modifiers and colors, and this makes it a nightmare for recycling. And so should it not be legislation and governments and political will that would address this issue and limit maybe the amount of plastics that we use to maybe 7-8 different types, and to mono materials that we can more easily recycle? Another part of the issue with the household plastics is that it's being shipped to Asia, for example, and where it's ending up in rivers and oceans, and so a huge challenge. So yesterday as well, it's been mentioned that we should try to eliminate, we should try to reduce, and that's absolutely true. But from this 5-6 billion tons of plastic that we make, half of that has been added in the last 15 years, and so within 15 or 20 years from now, we've doubled the amount that we make this year, and so it will help eliminate and reduce. But the question is, how do we cope with these growing volumes? That's a couple of things we can do, as mentioned, limit and reduce and use more reusables. With Biofutura, the company that we started 11 years ago, we focus really on bio-based and compostable products. We believe it can really help in solving this issue of recycling and of plastics, together with reusables, together with glass, and together with paper. So what are bio-based plastics? How many of you know what are bio-based or compostable plastics? Is it 10 years ago there would be just a few hands, but I think there would only one hand, or is there? Yeah, there's quite a few people that know about it already. So wonderful material. You make use of renewable content. You make use of starch, of cellulose, of fibers. You can turn it into packaging. You have, in most cases, a much lower carbon footprint. You have very often good barrier properties, better than the conventional counterpart. So for oxygen, and that will mean that it can keep food and fresh vegetables fresh for longer. It can keep meat sometimes fresh for longer. So it does have some very interesting properties. Globally, if we look at bio-based plastics, it's really only representing only 1% of the total volume, so it's still super small. Another really interesting aspect is that it can be composted, so it can go into the green bin. It can eventually go to industrial composters, and what this means is that it can divert a lot of organic waste that's now going into the rest fraction, the leftover fraction, and put where nobody wants it, and put that into the organic fraction. So make the composters happy, and think, for example, about tea bags, or about coffee capsules, or about or fresh produce bags where you put in your fruit and vegetable leftovers. If there, the compostable packaging can really help in adding the quality of compost. So promising group of materials. However, this 1% it's also rising. But what's inhibiting its further growth is really the fact that recyclers and composters are not very enthusiastic about this material, unfortunately, and that's frustrating sometimes. And there's ways around it, but it would help so much if composters and recyclers would accept also the compostable bioplastics into their streams. And so why don't they do it? is because they believe it would pollute it somehow, because they believe it's too small of a fraction, and so therefore they're not willing to invest into technology to sort it out, even though it's there. So it's a bit of a chicken egg problem. The volume is still not big enough to really invest in bringing in these new technologies. So what are some solutions? And I'm also curious to learn if you have any ideas. And what we see in the marketplace, what works, is, for example, mobile composters. So at an event or a festival where there's a lot of organic food scraps, we would put mobile composters where all the food waste together with the compostables would go. And then actually on site, really in a small scale, but there really close the loop locally, and actually bypassing then the composters and the recyclers. So that could be something. Another way would be to maybe only work with drop-ins. That's the bio-based version of the PE and the PETs that we know right now. That's actually this bottle. There's also no point in making a bottle like this compostable, because it's meant to last for a while, and there's also no point in making a pen compostable, because it's also meant to last for a while. To be fair, in most cases, it's quite easy to address some of these concerns of the composters and the recyclers, and that it would actually help them as well. And in some cases, I do admit that bioplastics, they confuse, and they may lead to some confusion with recyclers and composters. An example, for example, is this one. I just found it in a store nearby. So it does say plastic-free, and that in a way it's true, but it's also not true. It's one of the biggest bioplastics that we know. It's called PLA. It's both recyclable and it's compostable, but it's a polymer, and so it would be better maybe to make this from a drop-in material, from a bio-PT or from a bio-PE, and so because eventually this is not going to end up in organic waste, and even if it does not add that much to the quality of the compost. Eventually, it is not a carrier of organic waste that can really add some value to the compost. So there are some solutions for bio-based and compostable plastics. The material that we like a lot with Befutura, and if you also have some ideas about how to help this industry and to work with the composters and the recyclers in a good way, then obviously I'm happy to hear about it more. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Wouter. You're committed to Cradle for a long time now, and Befutura is committed to Cradle, but you do not have any certified product. What is that? Why you're not going on this way? Because actually, here we are talking about Cradle and the philosophies of Cradle, and that's why we want to hear from all the different examples, and also people who are going on this way. But what is the difficulty with the certification, or was that never an idea for you?
It is still an idea, and I hope at some point we'll also get there. And we're a bit of a smaller company, obviously, with less resources than my Belgian colleague from a moment ago. But industrially compostable bioplastics that are certified EN 1432, which means they compost within 9 to 12 weeks for 90% or more into CO2, humus, and water vapor. That is already closing the loops. Obviously, the packaging together with the organic waste is providing nutrients for new plants to grow, and it obviously doesn't have the Cradle-to-Cradle certification. I hope we'll get there. I think it does make sense. However, it's also very short-lived products that are only used for a few minutes in many ways, and so. And even though it's bio-based or compostable, those products may not always have the image of being maybe truly cradle to cradle or represent something super sustainable, even though it is. But
So that's probably one question we can ask our next speaker, because it's probably a question of marketing and how to use it. But talking more about your product, the idea, how do you know that these products are really biodegradable? And do you always biodegrade them, or do you use them for producing, for example, methane or anything else?
Yeah, that's a good point. There are standard certifications issued, amongst others, from the European Union, and one of them is the EN 13432. So we would only work with the certified compostable bio-based products that ensures that they are suitable for industrial composting, sometimes even for home composting. There's home compostable certificates. Actually, one of the ways to bypass the industrial composters, to really compost at home. In your groene tonnen.
And in water? Aqua systems?
No, there's some marine biodegradable, marine compostable type. Think about fishing nets or how you oyster egg racks that you put into the rivers and oceans. But it's also packaging, or even bio-based compostable packaging should not be made to, or should not induce people to really throw it away. It's really the idea is that it's being composted, it's being recycled. But to be fair, with Biofutura, probably about 20% or 30% of the compostable bioplastics that we sell, there only that small amount is actually only composted. The rest will, like a lot of other plastic waste streams, will be incinerated or will be heat recovery, thermal recycling, which is not a term I support. But it, unfortunately, in a big stream is not being composted now. That's true.
Other questions from the audience? Yes, right here I saw one.
Thank you. I would have a question towards the purpose of your company. So, as I understood it, you are selling single-use products, and I, for example, work within the hospitality sector, and I see a lot of hosts choosing now food-based single-use products, like based on sugarcane or maize, instead of actually thinking about reusable solutions. So they choose your products instead of actually thinking about a solution that is more sustainable. So how do you deal with this question, and also with the question of taking a material that is actually food, so maize or sugarcane? That would be my two critical questions.
Good. Let's try and dismantle the first one, or but good questions. And our mission has always been to replace oil-based, single-use oil-based plastics. And so in cases where we really need packaging, where we really need takeaway and to go, we'd rather see this bio-based and compostable. And are we ever going to be able to live completely without single-use packaging? If that would be possible, then that would be fantastic. And in cases where we can't, I think we should probably switch mostly to bio-based and compostable packaging. But it's true that for example, in the SUP ban, the single-use plastic ban proposed by the European Union, a lot of single-use plastics will be banned, and so companies are looking to alternatives, to straws, for example, and so in many ways, in many cases, straws are not even needed, and there's a huge search now for alternative type of straws, and so where you can really question, does the napkin or the straw, is that really something you need in your business? Can you not do without, or can you not work with a reusable? So we do not support bio-based compostable single-use packaging in cases where it's not really needed. I admit that we won't easily then say no, but we won't support it, and our aim is to replace especially the fossil-based single-use plastics, and yeah, disposable single-use, that's true. If we can reduce it, we better. But I think for a long time we'll still be able to need them to communicate, to keep fresh fruit for longer, to be able to go to a picnic or to go. And second part, yeah, that can address also really quickly the whole land use point of bio-based and compostables is truly a bit of a fairy tale. If you really look at the land use that is needed for bio-based plastics, and also the European Bioplastics Organization here based in Berlin, they've had some reports on that. It's really 0.004% that is actually needed, and it's come really from the biofuel discussion 1 or 2 decades ago. At the moment, for bio-based and compostable plastics, we still use, obviously, edible parts, like, for example, cornstarch, but increasingly residual waste is being used, switchgrass or algae, and that would also be the future. Obviously, it should not compete with food. That's clear. It does to some extent still, but increasingly not. So, yeah. But good questions, yeah.
But probably talking about this, we should also think about our animal production and how much land we need for this feeding these animals. Comparing to that, because that's always a discussion as well. That if you look at the amounts, then you would have a total different view on that as well. But and you were also telling me that the whole discussion on single use or using something more times was also a cultural discussion for you as well. Because, for example, in some countries you wanted to work with cups that you could reuse, and that didn't work, and in some countries it worked. Is that correct?
Yeah, when we did we have this? I don't really recall this. I really cultural, possibly, yeah. I don't recall this discussion, but or if it's no, sorry.
I probably had it with your colleague that she
and she Antje maybe, yeah, that could be. Yeah,
she told me about that they tried to foster in Holland. They tried to foster not using single-use cups, but it was difficult to actually implement this in the market because the people didn't want to use it because they are used to have this coffee-to-go cup.
Yeah, or yeah, I think you see both. You see it in both directions. That in many coffee-to-go stores that you see at central stations, at train stations, you get a small discount if you bring your own cup, and that's fantastic. That's actually also a way where we can cut down drastically on the amount of single-use cardboard cups, because they consume a lot of volume and space in our waste bins. Yeah, but are we supposed to, if we go traveling, take a reusable lunchbox, a water bottle, coffee mug, and cutlery? Maybe, but it's hard to really phase out completely still some single-use. Yeah.
There's time for one last question. Is there any? Behind next to Serena.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm coming from Istanbul, Turkey, EPA, Turkey. And actually, maybe you heard, a Turkish lady has invented a bioplastic from olive seed. So as it's a byproduct, it's just from, can you use it against, let's say, sugar cane? And what do you think about it? Because at the end, it's just the seed of the olive, and you can eat olive oil, etc. And it's the end product that you can use. You don't need a big land to produce. Yeah. What do you think about it?
That would be the future, I think, if raw material, a feedstock, which doesn't compete with food, which is really a waste stream that we can upgrade, upcycle. That would be the best for packaging. And so algae, or yesterday there was a woman who came up with also some material from animal feedstock. There are there's a lot of these examples, and that would be the future. Yeah, the next question will be the scale and the economies of scale and to scale that up. But that would be the best, because at the moment I do agree that some feedstocks are, yeah, they're not perfect. No, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Wouter. It's nice that you're here and to tell us a little bit more behind your ideas. Thank you very much. This is your applause. We've now heard some stories from two different companies and different experiences with working on Cradle to Cradle. All of these companies always have a perspective or issues with how they can actually do marketing for their products, and with how they can actually work on bringing Cradle to Cradle into their company. So I'm really interested. I'm really grateful that we have Serena here, and she will tell us a bit about. She's a marketing expert, and she's also working for a company that was working with Cradle to Cradle. And yeah, we are happy to have you here to show us what is the difficulties about implementing Cradle to Cradle and how can this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nora. Thank you, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be at those events. I find them so energizing and so motivating for the future. So my role today is not to tell you about the company I have the pleasure to work for, although it has been the front runner in Cradle to Cradle with the first product ever certified in '96, and since then they went a long way implementing also life cycle assessment and now being engaged on circular economy, but rather leverage my experience in this company to distill maybe 10 tips that I thought I could share with you, hoping to bring a different perspective and to hopefully add value to the conversation. I feel I'm a bit of an outsider because a lot of those conversations in those 2 days have been about politics and polymers and chemicals, and I'm absolutely not from this background, so I could follow the conversation about glass and mirrors, but when it came to Walter, I was completely lost halfway. So this is also the core of my job, because we have to understand that also in this case, stories matter. And stories are the most ancient way human beings are used to share information and connect to each other. It's since the prehistorical time that humankind gathered around the fire to tell each other stories. If you think about the Bible, the mythical Greek myths, or the Egyptians' way of displaying their own stories. So storytelling has been accompanying humankind and is still very important. And some years ago, those congresses were all about inspiring each other and telling stories to each other so that we would all feel engaged and empowered. And it's fantastic that nowadays there are really stories to tell. So my idea was to share with you a few ways on how to build an effective storytelling around cradle-to-cradle principles and how to deal with that in a hopefully an effective way. So the second recommendation I would have to start with why. Why are you doing certain things? Why did you engage in a C2C journey or you did not engage? Why do you do what you do every day as an organization? Simon Sinek said it long before me in a much better way. People buy your products or buy who you are because of why you do it. It doesn't matter what you do or how. That's a very rational thinking that comes afterwards. The first reason is the why. So when you think about your messaging and to start communicating around your C2C engagement or your sustainability messaging, start with why. Who you are and why you exist as a company. And then you have to find this magic triangle of finding the intersection of what's the purpose of your organization. It's now a magical moment in history where most of the big companies and corporations are moving towards higher purpose. It's not that CSR is confined to the CSR report and sustainability is a cross-functional thing that you use to tick the box. It's a critical part of the brand messaging. Think about who you are, why you exist. It is possible, and many companies are displaying their reason to be in a very purposeful way. Think about IKEA, think about Johnson & Johnson, Philips, just to name some. Think about the debate in Davos a few days ago where purpose was high on the agenda. This is the way forward. Purpose is an essential part of brand positioning, and everything starts from there. So it has to be consistent to who you are. It's not that one day you're doing one thing and then 2 days later, oh, I'm reinventing myself as a purposeful company. Well, that won't work. Consumers really look for consistency. So think about who you are, what's the way forward, and what's the most reasonable and natural way for you to move towards purpose. Is that social purpose? Is that the impact on the environment? Is the impact on communities? Is the impact on education and the new generation? What's your purpose? Once you have a vision and you have a mission, then you can establish trust through what you do and how you do it. And here a couple of, all this is really common sense, so I don't pretend to have the holy grail of communications. But the first shift is that it doesn't really matter what you're doing. The important question is that you have to ask yourself is, what is in for your customer? What is in for him? So what? We have 30 C2C certified products. So what? What's the point for the consumer you have in front of me? What's the reason why they will buy the glass from our Belgian colleagues and not from the competitors? What's the why for them? Why does it matter for your customers? And then really make it simple, make it emotional, make it relatable so that people can identify with the message you're bringing across. And in that case, the labeling, the certificate becomes a reason to believe, becomes a fact that proves the statement you're making. So if you think about that messaging, for example, get the toxic out of your toys. That's so simple. It's so emotionally relatable. Most stories are built always in the same way. There are 3 blocks in every good story. The first one, and I take Little Red Hood. I hate the story personally, but it's a story that everybody knows. So the story always starts with a situation. There's an hero. Little Red Hood goes into the woods. The hero, bear in mind, it's not you. It's your audience. So it's not, we are a 100-year-old company that really cares about the environment. Man, I'm already bored. The hero is your target audience. So the hero gets in trouble because guess what? Life is not easy. So you really want healthy stuff for your children that you love from here to the moon. But guess what? You give them to play stuff that has chemical bombs in it. Oh my God, no parents would like that. But guess what? The hero saves the days because I can offer you a solution for that avoids your kids to play and put into your mouth stuff that you really don't want them to get into their little bodies. So think about situation, complication, and resolution. In the same way, for example, for CNA, just to name one, which we heard yesterday, the hero is the young generation. We want to look cool, and we want also to be responsible towards the environment. But there are not cheap, affordable options around there that we could buy. But guess what? CNA can offer you that. Then you can move from storytelling to story acting because engagement is key. And here, once again, some common sense. You need to be trustworthy and consistent. Really, consistency across messages and what you do is key to build trust. And it's incredible how companies do maybe 9 blocks really well, and then on one they slip, and then up. The trust that they have built in years is gone in a second. So being trustworthy and being transparent and tell the truth doesn't mean to be naive. You have to be smart and to understand what you're saying, but you also have to stand up for your words and just be very consequent in acting on the vision that you have announced, on the actions, and on the following steps. So that's why being scared is one of the biggest barriers of embracing sustainability, in my experience. It's very easy to get scared. It's very easy to say, it's difficult, it's too big, it's not for me, I'll fail, oh man, I'll never get there. But guess what? You have to start small, prototype from what you learn. Don't be afraid. Gandhi said every journey starts with the first step, so make that first step. And then measure and learn from it. And yeah, measure and benchmark your results across time. Of course, it's really important to have people on board. And when it comes to marketing, giving it a face is crucial. It doesn't have to be a corporate messaging. It's the CEO that has to stand up and say what the company stands for. And once again, I quote IKEA because it's a company I love, but the CEO said, it's a good time, it's a good business to be a good business. So the CEO has to put the face. Unilever does the same, Interface, you see all those CEOs standing up for their company, but you also see employees being really the key player and the most trusted source also of information and reliability of how a company is. And that goes, of course, through the empowerment that we all have through social medias. So give empowerment to your teams. And one thing that I've seen happening over the years is that when there's something new on the market, you always have people that go for it because they love to be out of their comfort zone and they see the vision and they go for it, and some people that are much more reluctant. So you have to identify within a company who are those agents of change, who could be those ambassadors for the vision, and those people that will be talking about it with their colleagues, with their peers, with their friends, with enthusiasm and with the spark in their eyes. Find these people and make them your brand ambassadors. Give them really a business card like Interface does. Last but not least, it's very important, don't be selfish. This is really an important messaging for companies. This cradle to cradle, saving the world, circular economy, is not a journey that one company or one individual can do alone. That goes for internal movements, but that goes for working with your suppliers. We have heard it across those 2 days, every second, how important it is not to have suppliers, but to have partners in the journey that are willing to share critical data with you and build together a future. That goes for cross-industry partnership when it comes to building circular economy models and paper service models, things that are really changing the landscape of the business. But it also goes for industry-related relationship. We talk a lot about open source. What takes to be a leader and give away what you have just learned to other industry players so that the system can move forward together quicker. And the last one, which is the one I'm dearest to my heart, really, be positive and celebrate life. And that's why I love the messaging of those 2 days. Love your footprint. There's enough negativity out there. Love is the most powerful thing that makes us who we are, and it's the strongest thing ever in his highest and most noble definition, of course. We have all the possibilities in this world and all the competences, the great people, the experts that can tell us how we can get this done. Just do it with love. And that's my last recommendation. Thank you. Thank you.
Serena, thank you very much. Yeah, you're a marketing expert and you're working with Cradle to Cradle for so many years now, and you have seen all the companies that have already worked with Cradle to Cradle and had all these wonderful ideas and these great new products that were truly innovation. But why is it so difficult to communicate that, and why all these companies having such a difficult time to communicating these innovations, and not everyone outside there knows all these great examples that they're already there?
I think maybe it is very simplistic questions, but the background you need to fully understand the implications of one choice versus another are are not for everyone. You know, you are really an expert in material chemistry, as many in this room, but there are a lot of people like me that are not. So who do you trust, and how do you distinguish one thing from another? It's difficult for people, and at the moment there's no clear guidelines from governments, or at least to my knowledge, not enough guidance from politicians and from European Union about what's the way forward. So consumer gets a little bit lost in this diversification of certification and ways to go forward. They hear companies screaming, no, I do it my way, because don't look at him, he does it in this way, but I'm better because blah, 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 blah. And then you have all these certificates and all these different things. So on one side, it's an articulated topic, and on the other side, it's you don't have a guide that can help you through that. So companies struggle to drive it in a clear way, and consumers also struggle in trusting the messaging that they are exposed to. And that's why I was really happy that compared to many years ago, at the Congress, there are so many public representatives, because they are super important stakeholders in the conversation.
That's true. But still, when we look at these companies, there are companies having this super cool product, and they don't even tell anything about it. Are they afraid that all the other products would look bad next to them?
Yeah, I think it's such a sensible topic that when a company, imagine I do 10 products and one is C2C, the other 9 not. So what happens is that I'm super proud, I go out and I say, look, this is what we did. And then what people do is say, cool, now you're really bad on all the other 9s. You know, man, you should be ashamed of yourself. And I'm like, oh man, I really bumped on my own feet with that step. So companies are very careful in communicating when they feel they're ready, which in a lot of cases means that they really want to be perfect, also because press can be very naughty and they can really point at the one thing you don't do well, which is correct, of course. But that's why maybe one tip would be, you have to communicate very trustworthy what you do and what you don't do yet, but also what's your path to get there and why you don't do certain things. Because when you're honest and you say, well, this is what I've done, this is what I've learned, and I know on those things I'm not there yet, then it has a different perspective also for the audience.
So having a real roadmap and
yes.
having something in mind behind and only one product. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there are more questions from the audience. Maybe we had questions a lot from the front. Right back there, there's also some questions.
Yeah, sorry for the running. And hi, I'm Eva. I'm working in the marketing for soul bottles. And I have a question, because you said that there's like a core message we should transport, and it could be either like social topics or environment topics. And the question for us is always that all these topics are so related to each other. And so isn't it our duty to communicate that there's no singular problem that needs to be solved, but that's all related to each other, and we want to address all of it?
Yeah, definitely. When most of the companies nowadays refer to the 17 global goals, which are a very holistic perspective on how the different sectors are interrelated to each other. So one simple thing that companies do when they prepare their communication is to refer back to which one of the 17 goals they are answering with the specific action and what's the roadmap to improve. That's a simple way, but indeed it's one planet. It's an ecosystem of actions and of interrelated themes. So yes, you should have an holistic approach, unless you are so specific in your sector that your influence is very precise. But I could imagine very rare scenarios for that. In most of the cases, all of us would interrelate with the totality of the system.
Yeah, there's time for one last question behind there. Yes?
So it's just to build on what you mentioned, and I've heard a lot of people mention the SDGs, the goals, the Sustainable Development Goals. One of the problems with them is that, I defy anybody in this room to define all 17. There's too many of them. And it's difficult for people to kind of get their head around them, especially the public. Is the roadmap not not the C2C? Because that gives a tangible expression that actually is measurable.
Yeah.
The SDGs are lovely and colorful, but people don't really have a lot of confidence in what they mean.
Yes. Well, I can only give my very personal answer to that, but that's something that's very dear to my heart, and I have an opinion about it, is that I'm super grateful to Michael and Bill, because I think they really made a shift in history by starting the conversation around C2C and material chemistry, because to me that's the essential step to move any further in any direction. There's no circular economy without a C2C assessment and vision. If you don't know what's in your product and how you put them together, how on earth can you even imagine a circular economy model? And from there beyond to the 17 goals. So I don't know, it's my personal grateful experience. Probably a lot of other people might argue differently. I find the 17 goals pretty simple and understandable, but maybe people have a different opinion about it. So that's my personal answer. I think there are several ways to look at it, but that's my personal experience.
Thank you very much, Serena.
You're welcome. Coffee.